I regularly advise homeowners and buyers planning work on properties right across the UK. And one question that comes up all the time is how to insulate the floor in an old house and what it might cost. I did this on one of my own projects in Edinburgh last year. We dug out the existing floor, poured a new concrete slab, laid insulation and installed a wet underfloor heating system. If you own an old house and you're thinking about insulating the ground floor, this is the video for you. I'm going to talk about a crucial structural inspection you need to carry out before doing the work, how to manage damp in the ground, and at the end I will tell you how much a job like this costs. My name is Neil and I've run my own architecture practice in Edinburgh since 2009, specialising in alterations and extensions to private homes. Many of my projects are in Georgian and Victorian properties, so I see a lot of this type of work. If you want to skip ahead, there are chapter timestamps below. Let's get started. Why did we replace the floor? The project I'm going to walk you through is in a 200-year-old listed Georgian villa in Edinburgh. If you watch the channel regularly, you might have seen a video I recently made about a modern staircase I designed for this home. I've put a link in the description if you want to check that out. This house underwent a comprehensive overhaul. We replaced the electrics and heating systems, added a new bedroom and several bathrooms, upgraded the windows and created a better connection between the two floors via the new staircase. As part of the work, we replaced a large portion of the ground floor with a new insulated concrete slab and wet underfloor heating system. There were two reasons for doing this. The first was dry rot. A significant part of the ground floor had a shallow suspended timber floor, joists sitting barely off the ground with very little ventilation beneath them. That's a classic dry rot environment, and once it takes hold in timber, getting rid of it can be very difficult. The second reason was underfloor heating. The client wanted a wet system, water-fed pipes in the floor connected to the boiler, and that only works efficiently when it sits above a layer of insulation to stop heat disappearing into the ground rather than up into the room. These two things together, removing the dry rot and making the underfloor heating effective, are what drove the whole specification. Not all of the ground floor was replaced. The areas with stone flagstones in reasonable conditions were left alone. This was targeted work, not a wholesale dig out of the entire building. The ground floor in an old house like this was never designed to be thermally efficient. It was designed to sit and to let moisture move through it, which is something I'll come back to later in the video. Why do the foundations matter when insulating an old building? Before any excavation starts on a project like this, you need to know how deep your existing foundations are. This is not optional, and it's something I advise every homeowner to check as early as possible if planning to insulate an old floor. Here's why. An insulated solid floor is surprisingly deep, and it could undermine an existing foundation if that structure is shallow. The floor buildup goes like this. It must have a reinforced concrete slab, usually 150 millimeters thick, sitting on top of compacted hardcore. That's a special type of gravel. I tried to get our engineer to accept us using rubble from the site, but they wouldn't allow it because they didn't know how our rubble would behave when it was compressed. Different types of construction aggregates have all been tested and their properties are well understood. So we had to remove the rubble and carry in the new aggregate, which raised costs. On top of the aggregate, we laid a 50mm thick layer of sand, which is commonly called blinding, and its job is to protect this plastic sheet. This is the damp-proof membrane, and it is spread across the entire floor to stop rising damp from the ground. Without the sand blinding, sharp stones in the aggregate could puncture the membrane. This has been standard practice on new build homes for decades, but its use on older properties is somewhat controversial, and I will come back to that later. The next layer is the 150mm thick concrete slab. This is reinforced with steel mesh to give it strength. I've had discussions with engineers over the years about whether this could be avoided if we just used enough compressed aggregate, but they don't want to entertain that idea. A reinforced concrete slab is rigid, whereas compacted gravel could, in theory, move over time. The next layer in our floor was the insulation, but it is important to know that this can also be laid under the concrete. The Scottish building regulations have diagrams showing both methods. The reason I did it this way was because of our wet underfloor heating pipes. It is possible to lay these pipes within a reinforced concrete slab, but it adds complications and the possibility of someone damaging a pipe during the work. And some types of insulation laid under the slab can also be adversely affected by moisture in the ground. There is also a debate about using slabs as thermal mass, especially in conjunction with low temperature underfloor heating running off air source heat pumps. In this house, we used a conventional gas boiler, so that was not a consideration. I usually install insulation on top of the slab and then lay the heating pipes on the insulation. On top of that goes a layer of concrete screed. This is a thin mixture of cement that flows like liquid and can be polished smooth. The screed thickness is important. If it's too thin, it can crack, but if it's too thick, it can resist heat from the pipes getting into the room. So including the compacted aggregate, the overall thickness of our floor is 500 millimeters. That's half a metre. Keep in mind, this is a renovation, not a new build or a conversion. That means we don't have to meet the full modern standard for insulation. If we had, it would have added another 80 millimeters to the overall thickness. You can see the internal partition footings in this photograph. They step out at the base of the wall, and if that new floor were much thicker, it would undermine them. The structural engineer instructed that before any excavation, the contractor had to dig a single trial pit, 900 millimeters by 900 millimeters, to physically confirm the depth of the existing wall foundation level and to report back what they found. We had enough space, but if this is an issue in your home, it might be possible to raise the new floor to avoid digging down so deep. However, that will have knock-on consequences. Doors will get shorter, ceilings get lower, and any stairs will need to be rebuilt, so raising the floor level might not be worth it. This is why a structural engineer is not optional on a job like this. Don't rely on a contractor's in-house design. Have a qualified structural engineer visit the site, see the walls, and produce a proper specification for your new floor. What about the damp problem? Now, I want to address something that comes up every time this subject is discussed. In an old house, ground moisture has always been able to evaporate upwards through breathable materials, stone, brick and lime mortar. When you seal the floor with a concrete slab, plastic membrane and PI or insulation, you block that upward path. But the moisture doesn't disappear. The worry is that it gets pushed sideways and upward into the base of the walls, causing rising damp where there wasn't any before. This is not a fringe concern. There are documented cases where a concrete floor laid on an old stone building significantly increased dampness in the walls. The people who advocate for limecrete, a lime-based alternative to standard concrete that remains vapor permeable, point to exactly this. That said, the risk depends on what your walls are made of and how they're finished. In this house, the internal walls are brick with lime mortar. The external walls are solid stone, also with lime mortar, and a lath and plaster lining internally. Both of those walls are breathable. If moisture does reach the base of the wall, it can move through the material and evaporate from the surface rather than being trapped. A building with impermeable finishes is a different situation entirely. Cement render, cement pointed stonework, modern gypsum plaster, hard against the wall base. If you block the moisture path in a wall that can't breathe, you have a problem. My position on this is deliberately cautious because every building is different. When we excavated the ground in this house, it was bone dry. The rot had been caused by poor ventilation and badly installed drains in a bathroom, not by moisture in the ground. I'm not going to tell you that a concrete slab with DPM is always right for an old house. I don't think it is. What I'll say is that the right answer depends on your wall construction, your existing damp conditions, and the detail of how the work is carried out. I'm not going to give you a definitive verdict between concrete and limecrete today. Maybe that needs its own video, but what I'd encourage you to do is speak to a conservation architect or an experienced building surveyor who can look at your building before the work starts. If you are watching this video, you might be thinking about altering or extending your home, and that's where I can help. I provide an online consultation service for homeowners and buyers right across the UK. I can review a house for sale and work out if it's right for you, or I can help you understand what's possible with the house you currently own. I review your budget, your timescale and your ambitions, and all you need to send me are photos and drawings of the existing building. An estate agent's online listing is perfect for this. I offer a variety of consultations depending on the type of property, and I also provide a free guide for home buyers in the UK. You can find them all on the Real Life Architecture website. There's a link in the description. What did this cost? The cost of all the elements, removing the existing rotten floor, excavation, aggregate, sand blinding, damp-proof membrane, 150mm reinforced concrete slab, 100mm insulation, wet underfloor heating supply and installation, and a 50mm screed came to approximately £300 plus VAT per square metre. That's the total installed cost for everything I've described. It does not include the finished floor surface, the stone tile or carpet that goes on top of the screed. Understanding the real cost is what lets you make a proper decision. If someone quotes you significantly less than this, I'd want to understand what they've left out of their scope. Replacing the floor in an old house is not a simple job, and it is not a cheap one. Get the foundation depth confirmed before any contractor lifts a floorboard. Understand your wall construction before you decide on a concrete or limecrete approach. Make sure the work is covered by a building regulations approval, and make sure a structural engineer has designed the slab. And if you're not sure where to start with any of this, that's exactly what my online consultation is for. If you found this video useful, check out this playlist and be sure to drop a like. It really helps the channel. My name is Neil and I make videos about the reality of altering, extending, renovating and building homes in the UK. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to keep up to date.